You ever sit across from someone who tore your life apart and smile back like nothing ever happened? She was sitting 3 desks away, sipping her overpriced latte like she didn't once walk out on me in the middle of everything. Her hair looked the same, neat, smug, like the betrayal never creased it. I caught her staring again, that soft smirk on her lips like she was reminiscing. Or rehearsing. I didn't flinch. I stared right back. I hadn't seen her like this in over a year. Back then, we worked in different branches of the company, different buildings, different air. Now, same open workspace, same projects, same suffocating floor tiles that felt like they curled up under your soles the second she walked in. You know what's wild? She never said sorry. Not once. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a cheap, half-hearted hey. Things got complicated. Just vanished like everything we had was some scene she walked out of. And now she's back. Offering me help with reports, complimenting my tie, laughing a little too long at meetings when I speak. Like her absence was a coffee break. Like I forgot. Let me take you back, because context matters. I'm 31. Logical. Grounded. I don't act out of impulse, not usually. But ever since she strolled back into my life, like a rerun nobody asked for, I've been feeling something I can't name. It's not longing. It's not closure. It's like a slow boil beneath my skin. A year and a half ago, I came home early. Simple as that. Walked in, saw what I wasn't supposed to see. Not some tangled mess or loud confrontation. No, just a moment. Quiet. Subtle. Intimate in a way that burned hotter than anything physical. Her on the phone with someone she shouldn't be calling. The tone in her voice. The words she thought I'd never hear. I stood there. Didn't say a word. Left my keys on the counter and walked out. She didn't follow. She moved on. And now, like some twisted clockwork, she's trying to wind the gears back. But I'm not the same guy I was then. The thing is, and maybe this makes me the villain in some people's eyes, a part of me wants to let her back in. Not to forgive. To show her. To mirror what she did to me. Let her feel it all. The confusion, the doubt, the slow realization that the person you trusted is slipping through your fingers while smiling in your face. I know that's not right. It's not healthy. But there's this itch in me. This storm that hasn't calmed down since that day. You ever meet someone who thinks they can walk through life without consequences? That's her. She's never been told no, never had the door shut in her face, never tasted the aftertaste of her own decisions. Now here she is, back in my space, back in my air. And here I am, standing at a line I never thought I'd cross. Started slow. Her printing accidentally on my printer. Leaning over my desk when she could have emailed. Dropping casual lines like, "Hey, remember that weekend at the cabin?" Like I forgot. And maybe I smiled back. Maybe I let it happen. Because sometimes the best way to fix the past is to let it replay with a new script. The question is, how far am I willing to go? And what happens when she realizes the game's changed? And she's not holding the cards anymore. She started bringing me coffee. That might sound harmless, even nice, but it wasn't. Not coming from her. Not after everything. The first morning she placed it on my desk, I stared at the cup like it had teeth. No note. Just a disposable cup with a scribble on the side. "Just how you like it," smiley face. I didn't touch it. The next day she asked if I liked it. Smiling, bright-eyed, like we were still something. I gave her a flat thanks. But she didn't flinch. She just kept standing there, waiting. That's what really got under my skin. She looked so calm, as if she was entitled to my forgiveness, like time had reset the scoreboard. We were working late that week. A client had messed up specs, and the deadline was absurd. Long nights under pale office lights, the kind that make your skin look sallow and your thoughts turn weird. That's when she started helping me. Unasked, uninvited. I'd be reviewing copy, and suddenly she was beside me, peering over my shoulder. Her perfume, the same citrus one she used to wear when things were good, hit me like a punch. She reached across, close enough for our arms to touch, pointing out a typo, like we were a team again. But I remembered. My body remembered. The cold shock of finding out. The weeks that followed. The hollow in my chest every time I woke up alone. And still, I didn't stop her. She talked more. Started throwing around these casual little anecdotes. Remember when you got us lost on that mountain trail? Or, you still have that old vinyl I gave you? Like those memories were little coins she could flip to buy her way back in. It was strange. It was too easy. Like she had no fear. Like she thought I was some saved file she could reopen and edit. So I decided to test it. The next time she brought me coffee, I drank it. Looked her in the eye while I did. And when she smiled, I smiled back. That night, I scrolled through our old photos. Ones I hadn't deleted. There she was, in a sweater I used to pull off her shoulders. Laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years. I should have felt hurt. Maybe I did. But more than that, I felt power. Not over her. Over the script. I knew what I was doing. We had this Friday check-in meeting, small team, glass-walled conference room. Everyone shared updates, and I noticed she was watching me more than she listened to anyone else. Her eyes followed my hands when I spoke. She laughed when I cracked a joke, even though it wasn't that funny. When the meeting ended, she stayed back, lingered near my chair. "You're looking good lately," she said, voice soft. I just nodded, standing slow, not saying anything. Let the silence stretch until it got awkward. Then I left the room first. A week later, she invited me to lunch. Said we needed to catch up. Her words, not mine. I said yes. We went to the spot we used to love. Hidden rooftop cafe, overpriced pasta, skyline view. She wore this dark green blouse I remembered. The one she wore the first night we said we loved each other. She talked like nothing had happened. Told me about her recent travels, her family, asked about mine. I watched her closely. The way her fingers twirled the fork, how she played with her hair when she was unsure. And when the food came, I asked, "Why now?" She blinked. "What do you mean? Why are you doing this? After all this time?" She froze. Just for a moment. That was the first crack. The mask shifted. "Igesi." I realized I missed having you in my life. "No," I said. "You missed how easy it was." She looked down at her plate. Didn't respond. The silence lasted too long. And that's when it clicked. She wasn't used to not being forgiven. People like her, they rely on the kindness of the ones they hurt. They count on your softness, your memories, your weakness. But what they never count on is clarity. And I was clear now. I wasn't going to forgive her. I wasn't going to forget. But I was going to let her believe that I might. And that's where it all started to twist. Because when someone thinks they're winning, they let their guard down. And that's when you see who they really are. She called me that night. Not a text. Not a voice note. A full call. Her name glowing on my screen like a warning light. I stared at it too long before I answered, wondering if it was another test. Or if this was where I was supposed to draw a line and not cross it. But I picked up. "Hey," she said, soft, careful. I waited. I wanted to say thank you. For lunch. For not shutting me out. She paused. Listening, maybe, for my breath on the other end. I didn't give her much. "You could have ignored me, but you didn't. That means something." I finally spoke. "You don't know what it means." Silence. Then, she laughed. Not a funny laugh. A nervous one, with the edge of someone used to charming their way out of guilt. "I guess I deserve that." "You guess," I said. That shut her up. For a second, anyway. I heard her shift. Maybe on a couch, maybe pacing. I made mistakes. I was in a weird place, and I didn't know how to fix it. So I ran. And stayed gone. Another pause. "I thought you hated me." "I did." That landed. I could feel the weight of it cross the line between us, even through the phone. The kind of statement that doesn't need yelling. Just stillness. Then, in a voice too soft, she said, "Do you still?" I didn't answer. I ended the call. I didn't sleep that night. Not well anyway. My apartment felt too quiet, too clean. There were no photographs on the walls anymore. I'd stripped them all after she left. Couldn't stand the sight of them. Our happiness frozen, mocking. I sat in the dark for hours, replaying every second of that call. Every word she'd chosen. Every breath she took. This wasn't a girl looking for forgiveness. This was a girl trying to erase consequence. The next morning, I got into work earlier than usual. I wanted to feel the silence before the room filled with voices. I needed to see her walk in, Needed to know if she'd look different after last night. She did. She walked in slow, scanning the room, and when her eyes found me, she didn't smile right away. She hesitated, almost like she was afraid. Good. She brought no coffee that morning, just herself, and a new strategy. She sat closer in the next team huddle, responded only to my suggestions, made eye contact more than necessary, and when we passed in the hallway, she brushed her hand lightly against mine. Just a flicker, a silent apology wrapped in flirtation. It didn't shake me. I was past that now. Instead, I let it happen. I let her believe she was making progress. I let her think that time had softened me, that maybe I'd changed. But I hadn't. Later that week, she caught me in the break room. Just the two of us. She leaned on the counter, arms crossed, that old familiar tilt of her head. "You were right, you know," she said. "About what? I don't know what it means. This, whatever it is now." I waited. But I want to understand it. Or at least, start over. There it was. I looked at her. Really looked. She was fidgeting, like she was trying to keep the performance up but couldn't find the script anymore. So I gave her something. "Maybe," I said, "but it won't be the same." She smiled. And for a second I saw it, a flash of that arrogance again. That little gleam behind the eyes that said, "I've got him." She thought she'd won. But the thing is, I wasn't building a bridge. I was building a trap. And every smile she gave me, every casual touch, every laugh, every memory she tried to resurrect, was a thread in the web. Soon she'd be caught. And then she'd learn. Not with shouting. Not with drama. With silence. The kind that spreads under the skin. The kind that leaves people questioning what's real. The kind that tastes exactly like regret. It started happening in quiet ways. She'd walk past my desk and pause, like she forgot what she was doing, pretend to look for something, but her eyes would drift to me. Every time. I'd be mid-sentence on a call, and there she was, pretending not to eavesdrop but hanging just close enough to catch my tone. At first, I ignored it, played the game, let her think it was working. But then, something began to change in her. Little things. She became careful. Not the kind of careful people get when they're nervous, but the kind that looks like doubt. Like uncertainty was leaking into her confidence. I saw it in the way she'd type, hesitating mid-word. How she'd ask our manager to double-check things she usually breezed through. Her eyes started following me even when I wasn't looking. It was working. And yet, the thing no one tells you about revenge is this. Once it starts, it doesn't stop where you planned. It spills, spreads, starts bleeding into things you didn't intend. That Friday, we had a company lunch. One of those bland catered events in the 7th floor boardroom, where the lights are too bright and the laughter is too fake. I took my usual seat near the back. She sat across from me, far enough to not seem obvious, close enough that our knees could brush under the table if I moved mine a little. She didn't speak at first. Then, mid-conversation, while everyone was laughing about something forgettable, she leaned in slightly and whispered, "I've missed you." The room was loud, but her voice wasn't. It was steady, like a knife sliding through velvet. I didn't respond, just met her eyes, held the silence between us, and then turned back to my plate. That's when I saw it. A flicker, something behind her face. Confusion? No, it was smaller than that, quieter, like she realized the lever she used to pull didn't work anymore. And that's when the anxiety started. Not mine, hers. She started checking in more. "You all right? Did I say something wrong? Is everything okay between us?" Between us. There was no us. Not anymore. Not for a long time. But her mind had already started drawing the map back to it. It got worse in week 4. We were assigned to a joint presentation. Upper management, major pitch, 2 of us representing the same team. High stakes, which meant meetings, rehearsals, revisions, late nights, alone, together. That's when she began shifting. She stopped pretending to be casual. Instead, she got desperate. "I think about you all the time," she said one night after we stayed back reworking slides. The office was dim, most of the lights off. Just her voice, and that tired look in her eyes like she hadn't slept properly in days. You're in my dreams sometimes, she added. You ever think about me? I looked at her. She was biting her lip, playing that same nervous trick I used to fall for. I smiled. Sometimes. That broke her a little. I saw it. Not enough to shatter her. Not yet. But enough to tilt the room in her mind. I left before she could say anything else. Over the next few days, her messages got longer. Warmer. Her laughter came quicker, more forced. She'd touch my shoulder when she passed by. Linger too long when she explained things we both already knew. She wanted me to say something. To give her certainty. But I gave her nothing. And the nothing began to eat at her. People around us started to notice. Coworkers threw glances when she walked into the break room behind me. Our manager asked once if everything was still professional between us. Of course, I said yes, with a grin, because everything was on the surface. But underneath, she was sinking, and I was watching, and maybe that should have made me feel victorious, like justice had a face. But instead, it made me feel something colder. Not power, not satisfaction, just emptiness, like staring into a mirror and not recognizing the person staring back. Like I'd spent so long building a response that I forgot what the original question even was. But it was too late now. She was slipping, and I hadn't even touched her. It started with a missed meeting. We had a 10 a.m. check-in for the pitch, just the two of us. I was early, sat at the glass table, hands folded, phone face down. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No sign of her. Finally, a message. Sorry. Got caught up. You can start without me. It was vague, dry. No apology, no emojis, no heart at the end like she used to sneak in lately. Just cold text on a cold screen. That was the first break. Later that afternoon, she showed up at my desk. No makeup. Hair pulled into a lazy bun that still smelled like dry shampoo. She looked tired. Not the stayed up late watching shows kind of tired, but the kind that settles behind the eyes and makes every sentence sound half-swallowed. She didn't smile. She just asked, "Are you avoiding me?" I leaned back. "Avoiding you? You missed our meeting." "Yeah, but..." She hesitated, then whispered, "It feels like you're trying to mess with my head." I didn't blink. That's when I knew it had worked. Not the surface stuff, not the flirting, not the fake grins, but deeper, quiet manipulation. The kind where you give someone just enough warmth to stay, then strip it away in the dark. Over and over, until they can't tell which version of you is real. That night, she called again. 3 times. I didn't answer. The next morning, she wasn't at her desk. Just an empty chair. Her usual cardigan draped over the back. A half-full bottle of water beside her mousepad. At noon, she finally walked in. Quiet. No eye contact. And something in her face had changed. It was like someone had turned the lights off behind her eyes. Still, she acted normal. Too normal. Asked a question during the team sync. Laughed once at something I said. But when the meeting ended, she didn't leave. She waited. "Can we talk?" she said. I nodded. We stepped outside, balcony level, away from the buzz of keyboards and phone calls. It was windy. She crossed her arms like she was cold. But I knew better. She wasn't shivering from weather. "I just need to know," she said, not looking at me. "Is this real for you? Or are you doing this to hurt me?" There it was. The crack had split wide open. And she knew. I took a breath. Measured. Steady. Then I said, "You never apologized." She looked at me slowly, like she'd forgotten that part. Like she wanted me to forget it too. "I thought if I tried to show you I'd changed." "That's not change. That's hiding the stain under a prettier shirt." She blinked. Tears welled, but she blinked them back hard. Jaw tight. She wasn't going to break here. Not yet. "I thought we could start over." "You thought wrong." I turned and left. I didn't look back. But I heard her. The smallest sound. Not crying. Not a plea. Just this whisper. Barely audible over the wind. "I don't know who I am to you anymore." And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. It didn't last long. But it was there. That night, she sent a message. Just one line. "Please stop if this isn't real." I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. But because I wasn't sure anymore. sure who I was in this, sure where the edge was between payback and obsession. I had become so wrapped in the rhythm of retribution that I couldn't remember the original pain anymore. Only the pattern. I closed my phone, stared at the ceiling, and waited, because something told me she wasn't done unraveling yet. She started watching me, not in the playful way she used to, not like before, when her eyes would linger with some soft smile curled at the corners of her mouth. This was different. This was silent surveillance. Every time I turned around, she was already looking, pretending to be mid-thought or scrolling through something meaningless on her screen. But her pupils were fixed, dilated, like she'd forgotten she had the option to blink. I caught her 3 times in one morning. By lunch, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stepped out, took the stairs 2 at a time, even though I had nowhere to go, just needed fresh air, or space, or distance, something that didn't smell like office-grade perfume and old memories. I stood outside on the smoking balcony, even though I don't smoke, and leaned against the railing, staring at the street below like it could answer something I hadn't asked yet. Then I heard the door creak open behind me. She stepped out. I didn't turn. She came beside me anyway, arms crossed, jacket too thin for the wind. She shivered but said nothing. And then, in a voice that sounded smaller than it ever had before, she said, "Are you doing this on purpose?" Still, I didn't speak. Let the question float between us, cold and unanswered. Her breath hitched, then a laugh short, bitter, scared. "I see it now," she said. "You're giving me just enough to hope, just enough to stay close, but not enough to heal." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes, red around the edges, makeup barely smudged under one of them, told the whole story. She hadn't slept, or maybe she couldn't. "I used to be like that too," she whispered. "With you, before I messed everything up, before I ruined the only thing that ever." She stopped, swallowed hard. "I thought I could fix it by acting like nothing happened. I thought time was enough. But you're showing me exactly what it feels like to be held under, to have no air." Her voice cracked on that last part. Not dramatically, quietly, like a tire losing pressure. I turned to her slowly, and I said, "This isn't about revenge anymore." She frowned. "Then what is it?" I looked at her, not as the person I loved, not as the person who left, but as someone who no longer recognized the reflection staring back. "It's about showing you the mirror you refuse to face," I said. She stepped back, just slightly. Her foot hit the edge of the step behind her and wobbled, but she didn't fall. She just stood there, shaking. "I didn't think you had this in you," she said. Her voice was calm now, steadier, like she'd finally accepted something she didn't want to admit. "Neither did I said. And I meant it, because this wasn't who I was. I wasn't cold. I wasn't calculating. I wasn't the type to play long games in the dark. But somehow, over the past few weeks, I had become the architect of a slow collapse, hers, maybe, but also mine. And yet, I didn't stop. I went back inside. She stayed out there. I don't know for how long. That evening, she sent a message. Not through text. A handwritten note on my desk, folded once. No name on the front. I opened it when no one was around. "I wake up every morning and hope it was just a dream. What I did, what I became. But you never let me forget. And now, I can't tell if you're saving me or burying me." That line haunted me, because deep down I didn't know the answer either. It got quiet between us. Too quiet. She stopped coming near my desk. No more glances. No more coffee. No more leaning in with that fake casual tone. She moved like a ghost, drifting from task to task, eyes low, like she was scared to take up space. And I should have felt relief. But I didn't. I felt something I hadn't prepared for. Discomfort. Because when the noise dies down after you've spent weeks playing puppet master, all you're left with is the sound of your own thoughts. And mine were getting louder. I'd see her in the reflection of the office glass, sitting perfectly still at her desk, shoulders hunched like she was bracing for something. Her screen open, but her fingers not moving. Sometimes she'd stare out the window, like she was looking for a way out but couldn't see one. Then came the moment that rattled me. Thursday. Late. Most of the floor had emptied out, just me and a few others catching up on backlog. I headed to the kitchen for another cup of that watery office coffee. She was there, alone, standing in front of the microwave, not moving, not heating anything, just standing. I almost turned around, but something told me not to. She heard my steps, didn't look. Then quietly, almost like she was talking to herself, she said, "Do you think I deserve to be unhappy forever?" The question hit so fast and so raw, I forgot to breathe for a second. I said nothing. She turned to face me. Her eyes weren't red anymore. They were empty, not broken, drained, like something inside her had turned off the lights and left. "I'm not asking for your pity," she said. "I just need to understand if this is my punishment. If this is what you think I've earned." The words hung there, sour in the air. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Instead, I asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind for weeks. "Why did you do it?" She flinched, just a little, then sat down at the little corner table with the crooked leg. The one we used to eat lunch at together when things were still good. She didn't speak right away. Her eyes moved across the white countertop like she was trying to read something that wasn't there. "I was scared," she finally said. "Not of you, not of us, of how easy it had gotten, how stable. I didn't know what to do with peace. I thought maybe I didn't deserve it." She laughed once, bitter and dry. "So I set fire to it, like I always do." I didn't respond. She looked up at me, and there was something raw in her face. Not guilt, not regret, just exhaustion. "You were the only real thing I ever had," she whispered. "And I ruined it. And now I can't even tell if you're trying to teach me a lesson or just waiting for me to disappear." I leaned against the counter, and I told her the truth. "Maybe I'm not sure either." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe we're both just trying to hurt the parts of us that used to love each other." That line sat with me long after I left. All night, all the next morning. It repeated like a quiet knock on a locked door in the back of my mind. And when I walked into work the next day, she wasn't there. No text.
No explanation.
Just an empty chair. Her cardigan gone. Her water bottle cleared. By noon, HR sent an internal message. "Team adjustments in progress. Please note the seating realignments effective immediately." Her name was gone from our board. Just like that, I stared at the empty space where her name used to be. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel triumph. I felt something much worse. I thought it would feel like closure. That's what I told myself as I sat at my desk the following Monday, staring at the empty spot she used to occupy. The monitor was off. The chair tucked in too neatly, like no one had ever sat there at all. No trace of her. No scent. No noise. Not even one of those hair ties she always left scattered like breadcrumbs. Gone. But instead of peace, I felt the strange, flickering pressure. Like the kind you get in your ears when you're too deep underwater and the pressure keeps building, second by second, until it feels like something might snap. She'd disappeared. Not in the dramatic sense. There was no scene, no confrontation, no HR memo about a conflict. Just a sudden reassignment to another department. A floor away, a few walls over. Close enough to breathe the same air, but far enough that we wouldn't run into each other by mistake. Or so I thought. It's funny how someone can vanish from your life and still linger in the corners of your mind like a song stuck on a loop. Soft, maddening, impossible to ignore. The first few days were quiet. I tried to convince myself I'd won. She'd unraveled. She'd left. The game was over. But the quiet didn't feel like victory. Felt like something was waiting. Wednesday night, I stayed late again. I'd gotten used to it by now. The silence of an empty office. The way the hum of the overhead lights becomes its own kind of white noise. I was pulling up old slides from our final presentation together when I saw something strange. Her name, hidden in the notes section of one of the slides, a placeholder she must have typed weeks ago. It just said, "Remember who we used to be before we broke each other." I stared at it for a long time, not because it meant something huge, but because it meant she'd already known what was coming. That maybe she saw the storm before I did. That maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a game to her at all. I deleted it, closed the file. shut down my screen and sat there in the dark. That night I dreamed of her. We weren't fighting. We weren't even talking. We were just sitting on the floor of our old apartment, listening to music. The song she used to hum under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening. The room was dim, filled with the kind of warmth you only feel once, the kind that doesn't come back. I woke up with a dry throat and a knot in my stomach that didn't go away all morning. The following week I saw her. In the elevator. Just us. We both paused when the doors slid open, our eyes locking like neither of us expected the moment to be real. She didn't step in. I didn't move. She just stood there, holding a folder to her chest like a shield. And then the smallest nod. Not forgiveness. Not anger. Just recognition. And the doors closed. I rode up alone, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the mirrored walls, wondering who I was becoming. Wondering if this was what I wanted. Because the truth was louder now. I had broken something in her, maybe more than I ever intended. But in doing so, I cracked something in myself too. The first time I heard her laugh again, it was 3 weeks later. Not the hollow, performative kind she'd used when she was trying to edge back into my life. This was real, sharp, light, sudden. It cut through the hallway like wind through a slit window, cold and unexpected. I wasn't even trying to see her. I just stepped out of a budget review meeting, neck sore from hours of numbers, when I heard it coming from the break area. Her voice, mixed with someone else's. A guy, deep tone, too relaxed. I didn't walk over, didn't peek, but my feet slowed, and then something strange happened. My heart pounded. Not out of jealousy, at least I don't think it was. Felt more like friction. Like I was brushing against a version of her I hadn't accounted for. One that wasn't unraveling anymore. One that wasn't watching me, waiting, bleeding regret from her eyes. She was moving on. Just like that. I sat at my desk for the next hour and didn't type a single word. That night, I didn't go home right after work. I stayed behind, watching the city from the floor-to-ceiling windows, unsure what I was even staying for. Maybe I was waiting for the weight to lift. But it didn't. What I felt was something heavier than I'd expected. A slow-blooming, bitter thing that didn't have a name. It made my palms sweat, made my eyes stay unfocused for minutes at a time. And the worst part? It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. The man I thought I was, the man who was so sure that justice looked like silence, like patience, like withheld kindness, didn't look anything like the man who was now sitting alone, watching the ghost of someone walk out of his mind and into someone else's arms. Because the longer she stayed away, the more I saw her clearly. Not the version I'd painted to justify what I was doing, but the girl who, yes, broke me, but who also used to bring me soup when I was sick, who used to stay up editing my presentations when I fell asleep on the couch. The girl who made me mixtapes on a flash drive and left them in my backpack like secret messages. That girl was real. And I didn't just punish the woman who left me. I buried the memory of the one who once stayed. The next morning, I opened our old chat thread. The one I never deleted. My finger hovered over it for a full minute before I tapped it open. So many unread messages. Her final ones were still there. That note she'd written me about dreams. About hoping it was all just a nightmare. I scrolled up past them. All the way to the top. Our first conversation from work. The awkward jokes. The emojis. The way we used to send photos of what we were eating for dinner, even when we were apart for just a night. And there it was. Her last voice note. One I never played. I didn't even remember getting it. It was time-stamped the night I walked out of that restaurant after she whispered she missed me. I sat back, put my headphones in, pressed play. Her voice was small, shaky. I know I've lost the right to ask anything of you. I know what I did, and I know how easy it is to think I deserve every ounce of silence you're giving me now. But I just want you to know, I never stopped remembering who we were, and I still don't know why I broke it. Maybe I never will. But the worst part? I don't think I broke us because I didn't love you. I think I broke us because I did. The audio ended. I didn't move. I just sat there in the flickering light of my monitor, my reflection in the black screen. Unfamiliar, unblinking. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt sorry. Not just for her. For me too. because I had gotten so lost in the idea of making her feel what I felt. I hadn't realized that what I felt was still there, and now it had nowhere to go. I thought about messaging her. The thought alone should have scared me, but it didn't. What scared me was how natural it felt, like slipping back into an old coat you thought you'd burned, only to realize it still fits, down to the frayed edge of the sleeve you used to tug when you were nervous. I didn't type anything, not that day, but I kept the chat open, minimized, tucked in the corner of my screen like a secret I couldn't quite bury. I watched the green dot next to her name flick on and off throughout the afternoon. Sometimes it stayed lit, sometimes it blinked away, and every time I wondered if she was watching mine the same way. That week dragged. Days lost their edges. Tasks blurred. I went through motions like I was trying to convince myself that the weight wasn't returning. But it was, pressing into my chest like something I'd swallowed and never digested. Then came the elevator ride. Again. She stepped in on the 5th floor. Alone. Her eyes widened, just slightly, like she hadn't expected me. But she didn't hesitate. She stood right beside me. Not across. Not angled away. Right next to me. Close enough to smell the faint trace of whatever she wore now. No longer citrus, something sharper. New. We didn't speak. The elevator hummed down to the lobby like it was carrying the last words we both never said. When the doors opened, I moved first. But she followed. Through the lobby. Out the building. Same pace. Side by side like we were tethered by something invisible. Our shoes hitting the pavement in sync. Her breath visible in the early evening chill. Finally, just before the corner where we usually split ways, she said, "I think I hated you more than I hated myself." I stopped walking. She did too. She wasn't looking at me when she said it. Just out toward the street, headlights stretching past us like comets. "And now?" I asked, not sure why I said it. She turned, slow, tired, raw. Now I don't know which of us I was trying to punish more. That hit deeper than I wanted it to, because deep down I'd been wondering the same thing. Had I really wanted her to suffer? Or had I just wanted someone to sit in the same pain I had? So I didn't feel so damn alone in it? I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. She didn't wait for a response. She just turned and walked. I stood there, watching her fade into the curve of the street, her silhouette swallowed by headlights and noise. That night I couldn't sleep, not because of guilt, not because of regret, but because I felt the balance shift. It was like we'd both thrown so many stones at each other's walls. There was nothing left standing but rubble. And now, instead of standing tall in some righteous victory, I was just cold, in a place I didn't recognize, place I built. The next morning, I walked into the office and sat down at my desk, and for the first time in months, I opened a new message. I typed, "I don't know what we're doing, or why we're still doing it, but I'm tired too." I hovered over the send button, then deleted the whole thing, because maybe silence was the only honest thing we had left. The silence didn't end. It changed. It became something dense. Felt, not just heard. The kind that presses against the back of your eyes, turns ordinary moments into loaded scenes. I'd pass her in the hallway sometimes. No words, no nods. Just a flicker of recognition. Familiarity without safety. She wasn't avoiding me, but she wasn't trying anymore either. Whatever fire had been in her, it had gone out. And whatever satisfaction I thought I'd get from watching that, it didn't come. Instead, it felt like I'd set fire to a house I used to live in. And now I was standing in the ash, breathing in things I used to love. Every room at work reminded me of her. Not in some romanticized, sentimental way, but like echoes, chair angles, the way her typing used to sound. Her tea mug someone had placed in the communal kitchen rack and never moved. The little dent she left in the old couch outside the server room. Memory had become invasive. One night, the cleaning staff forgot to turn off the lights in the West Wing. I walked past and saw the flickering glow of her old desk. Empty now, keyboard pushed just slightly off-center. I stood there a long time, long enough for one of the janitors to notice. "You forget something?" he asked, wheeling past with his mop. I nodded without thinking. "Yeah." He kept moving, and I stood there wondering what Exactly. I had lost. Because it wasn't just her. It wasn't just the relationship or the betrayal or even the part of me that wanted revenge. It was the version of myself I used to be before I let pain start writing my script. That weekend, I went back to the cafe. Our cafe. The rooftop one. Where we sat during that fake lunch weeks back. Where she'd worn that green blouse and tried to reverse time with wine and old memories. I sat alone. Ordered the same thing I used to, tomato risotto and sparkling water. I didn't finish it. The taste felt wrong. Lacking. I looked out at the skyline we both used to point at, naming the buildings like they were constellations. Now they just looked like cold slabs of metal and concrete. Unreachable. My phone buzzed. One new message. From her. No words. Just a photo. A lamp. The one from our old apartment. Warm glow, soft light, set on the corner of the floor like it always used to be when we had people over and wanted the room to feel like home. I stared at the image, then realized the background was unfamiliar. Her new place, maybe, but the lamp was the same. A minute later, another message. This one said, I didn't know what I was keeping. Until now. That one hit like a slow punch. Not hard, but deep. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Instead, I closed my eyes and leaned back in the chair, letting the cool rooftop wind wrap around me. And I asked myself, not for the first time, what did I win? Because somewhere along the way, the scoreboard disappeared. The victory blurred. And all that remained was this weight, this ache of having survived something together, only to end up strangers again, carrying pieces of the same collapse. It was raining the day she showed up again. Not the soft kind of rain. Not the cinematic drizzle that makes people fall back in love in movies. This was sharp rain. Fast, cold, impatient. The kind that makes you forget why you ever left home in the first place. I was packing up late. Everyone else had left. I didn't even hear the elevator open, just the sound of wet shoes on linoleum. When I looked up, she was already standing by the door, soaked.
No umbrelle.
Hair slicked to her forehead. And in her hands, a box. Small, plain, no label. She didn't knock, just looked at me through the glass. Waiting, daring me. I opened the door. She didn't say hello, didn't joke, just walked in, her boots squeaking against the floor. She set the box down on the edge of my desk, water dripping from her coat. Then she looked at me, really looked. Eyes red, not from crying, from cold. Maybe from exhaustion. I'm done, she said, voice flat. I didn't answer, just stared at the box like it might start speaking on her behalf. I brought you everything I kept, she said. Notes, photos, that old notebook you used to write in when you couldn't sleep. I don't know why I kept them, but I don't want to anymore. She stepped back, like the box was some kind of offering, or confession. I stayed still. Say something, she whispered. Please.
He walked over slowly.
Took off my jacket. Placed it on the chair beside her, not saying a word. Then finally I asked, why now? She blinked. Because I don't know who we are anymore, she said. And I can't pretend that silence makes it better. I tried. I tried disappearing. I tried remembering the worst parts of you so I'd stop missing the best ones. Her voice shook a little. I even tried hating you. Fully. Purely. But I couldn't. The room was quiet, save for the hum of the vents and the soft tap of rain on the glass. She stepped closer. Only slightly. And the thing is, her voice lowered. I think you tried hating me too. But not because you wanted to. Because you needed to. Because it made what happened easier to understand. Because if I was just some manipulative girl who broke your heart and never looked back, then it meant you could bury it. Her eyes locked with mine. But I didn't look back because I was cold. I looked back because if I really looked, I was afraid I'd run back. And I didn't deserve that. Silence. Thick. Drenched. Then she said the one thing that twisted something deep in me. I was already broken when I met you. You were just the first person who didn't try to fix me. You just stayed. And I didn't know what to do with that. I sat down slowly, staring at the box. My fingers brushed its edge. But I didn't open it. I don't know what you want from me, I said quietly. I don't either, she replied. I just wanted you to know who I was. Not who you made me into. Not the version of me that walked out. Just me. The whole mess. For a moment we just sat there. The storm tapping its fingers across the windows. Her coat dripping steadily onto the carpet. My mind running full speed in place. I don't forgive you, I said. Not cruel. Just honest. I know. I don't trust you. She nodded. And I don't think I want you back. She looked down. Something flickered in her, pain, then relief, like she already knew. But, I said, I think I finally understand. Her eyes met mine. You weren't trying to hurt me. No, she said. I was trying to escape me. You just got caught in the blast. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat there. Two people who'd worn each other like skins, now finally stepping out of them. No longer enemies. Not lovers either. Just survivors of the same wreck. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed revenge. Or answers. Or closure. I just needed the stillness. And I had it. She left the box on my desk. Didn't ask me to open it. Didn't say what was inside beyond those few vague words. Notes, old things, pieces of a version of us that no longer lived anywhere but memory. After she walked out, the silence didn't settle. It hovered. Not like a pause, more like a breath being held just under the surface, waiting to break. I didn't touch the box that night. I just stared at it, this cardboard tombstone of something that had once felt immortal. It sat there like it belonged to someone else. Like maybe, if I left it long enough, it would disappear on its own. Didn't. By the next morning, it was the first thing I saw. I ran my hand along the top. Opened it. The first thing inside was a sticky note. The kind I used to leave on her bathroom mirror when I left for work early. Dumb little quotes, in-jokes, drawings with stick figures. This one was mine. I remembered it. You're not broken. You're just learning what shape you really are. I'd written it during that week when she was spiraling. Work pressure, family problems, all hitting her at once. She cried in the shower and told me she didn't know how to be soft without falling apart. I read the note 4 times, then set it aside. Underneath, there was a bundle of receipts. Train tickets from the weekend trips we used to take. Photos, not staged ones, just grainy, spontaneous captures. Me asleep in the car. Her eating noodles with sauce on her chin. A video file on a USB stick labeled, "Don't delete this if we fight." The deeper I dug, the more I felt it. This slow ache threading through my chest. Not grief, not nostalgia. Something worse. Recognition. Because these weren't reminders of what I'd lost. They were reminders of what I once had the chance to protect. And didn't. I'd spent months trying to make her feel what she did to me. But now, with this box in front of me, the entire emotional architecture of our relationship condensed into scraps of paper and unspoken apologies. I realized she already had. She'd carried it with her every single day. Not in her words. In the silence. In the way she walked around me, never through me. In the way she looked at me like a wound with a face. She wasn't free. And neither was I. I took the box home. Put it on the kitchen table. Sat with it like it was another person in the room. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was haunted, but because something inside me had stopped resisting. For the first time, I let the memories in. The good ones. The warm ones. The ones I'd buried under layers of cynicism, pain, and that hollow sense of power I thought revenge would give me. Something quiet had clicked into place inside me. Like a bone that had been out of joint for so long, I forgot it was supposed to feel anything but wrong. Mornings came easier. Music sounded better. Even the city, with all its noise and heat and casual chaos, felt less like a maze I was trapped in, and more like a street I finally knew how to walk. One evening, months later, I was sitting on my balcony. Nothing fancy, just a rusted railing and a view of power lines. Watching the sky shift from gold to ash. The sun was doing that thing it does when it bleeds across the buildings like it's reluctant to leave. I was alone, not lonely, and I started writing again. Not about her, not about us, about stillness, about healing, about what it means to fall apart. Slowly, quietly, painfully, and then not just stand again, but walk forward. Because that's the part no one tells you. Letting go doesn't come with trumpets. It doesn't arrive wrapped in clarity. Sometimes it shows up as silence. as an empty inbox, as a chair you no longer glance at expecting someone to be there. And that silence? It's not empty. It's full of choice. The choice to stop carrying things that were never meant to be carried forever. The choice to stop being defined by what broke you. The choice to see yourself not as a ruined version of a love story gone wrong, but as someone who survived it, someone who learned, someone who changed, someone who walked through it, burned, and still came out, not whole, but honest. And maybe that's the real ending. Not reunion, not revenge, not even forgiveness, just release. One night, I opened that drawer where I'd kept the photo, the one of her laughing, and I held it again. This time without fear, without shaking. Then I put it in a box, a different one, labeled it with one word, before, and I slid it under the bed. Not to forget, just to make room for after, because I don't live in that chapter anymore. And I don't think she does either. We are both elsewhere now, living in the lives that followed the fire. Wiser, quieter, still walking. And somewhere out there, maybe she's doing what I'm doing now. Looking at the night sky, feeling the soft ache of things that once mattered deeply, and smiling, not because it didn't hurt, but because it did. And we made it through anyway.